The first part told you what the 88 was. Now we go deeper. Into the battles where it proved itself. Into the numbers. Into the men who stood behind it. Not as symbols, but as soldiers with a job most people today cannot imagine. North Africa, 1941. The desert is not a forgiving battlefield. No cover, no forest, no buildings. Just flat, open ground stretching to the horizon in every direction. Every movement visible. Every muzzle flash gives away your position. Every mistake fatal. It was here in the Western Desert Campaign that the 88 first demonstrated what it could do against armor. The British Army in 1941 operated a range of tanks, among them the Matilda II, which was considered virtually invulnerable to most German anti-tank weapons at the time. Its frontal protection stopped standard German 37mm and 50mm rounds at combat ranges. British tank commanders knew this. It gave them confidence. That confidence did not last long. At the Battle of Halfaya Pass in June 1941, Rommel positioned several 88mm guns in concealed, hull-down positions. The British launched a tank assault expecting to overwhelm the German defenses. What they encountered was something they had no answer for. The 88 cut through Matilda armor at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters. Some tanks were destroyed before their crews even identified the source of fire. Of roughly 100 Allied tanks committed to the attack, the majority were destroyed or disabled. German losses were minimal. The British soldiers who survived called the pass Hellfire Pass. Not because of the heat, because of what happened there. The technical reality. The Flak 18 and its successor, the Flak 36, fired an 88mm shell at approximately 820 meters per second. The British QF 2-pounder anti-tank gun matched that velocity on paper, but the 88 threw a significantly heavier projectile. More mass at similar velocity means dramatically more kinetic energy on impact. And kinetic energy is what defeats armor. At 500 meters, roughly 100 millimeters of penetration. At 1,000 meters, still over 90 millimeters. The Matilda II had 78mm maximum armor. The M4 Sherman, backbone of Allied armored forces from 1942 onward, had 76mm frontally. Against the 88, neither tank offered reliable protection at standard combat ranges. This was not propaganda. This was physics. The Eastern Front. North Africa was one theater. The Eastern Front was another. Operation Barbarossa began on June 22, 1941. Within weeks, German forces had advanced hundreds of kilometers into Soviet territory. The Wehrmacht encountered Soviet armor in quantities that shocked even experienced commanders. And among that armor was the T-34. The T-34 was a problem. Its sloped armor was not simply thick, it was angled, which caused many shells to deflect rather than penetrate. The standard German 50mm anti-tank gun struggled against it beyond close range. The 37mm was largely useless. The 88 was not. In defensive positions along the Eastern Front, flak batteries were repeatedly pulled into direct anti-tank roles when Soviet armor breached German lines. The gun's ability to engage targets at distances exceeding 2,000 meters, where Soviet tank guns were far less accurate, gave German defenders a critical advantage in open terrain. By 1943, this reality had shaped German tank design directly. The Tiger I, introduced in late 1942, was built around the KWK-36, same caliber, similar ballistics as the Flak 36, now mounted in a turret on tracks. The Tiger could do what the Toad 88 could not: move. But the Toad gun remained in service throughout the war. Cheaper to produce, easier to manufacture in quantity, deployable in positions a tank could never reach. The human cost. In 1944, the Luftwaffe's flak arm comprised approximately 900,000 personnel. A significant share were not professional soldiers. As manpower became scarce, batteries were increasingly staffed with Luftwaffenhelfer, boys aged 15 to 17, pulled from schools and Hitler Youth organizations. Hundreds of thousands of them by 1944. They were not given a choice. A few weeks of training at most, then a live battery in active service. They operated rangefinders, carried ammunition, in some cases manned the guns themselves. Stationed at cities, refineries, rail junctions, everywhere the bombers came, and the bombers came constantly. The 8th Air Force flew over 10,000 heavy bomber sorties against German targets in 1943 alone. RAF Bomber Command ran parallel operations by night. Together they kept the flak arm under sustained pressure, day and night, for years. Casualty figures for German flak forces are difficult to isolate precisely. The flak arm fell under Luftwaffe command and losses were recorded within broader Luftwaffe totals. But historian Anthony Beaver and others have documented that flak units suffered disproportionately high casualty rates, particularly those positioned in urban areas and along major industrial corridors.
What is documented without dispute? Operation Gomorrah, July to August 1943, Hamburg. An estimated 37,000 civilians dead in 1 week. Flak batteries in and around the city destroyed or severely degraded. Personnel who survived the initial attacks were immediately ordered back into action. No rotation, no relief. You stayed at the gun. The bomber's perspective. For Allied crews, flak was not an abstraction. 8th Air Force records show it caused approximately 22% of all bomber losses over Europe, roughly comparable to fighter interception. But unlike fighter attacks, which were sudden and fast, flak was sustained. A bomber flying through a defended target area might remain under fire for 15 to 20 minutes, unable to take evasive action without breaking formation. Crews described it consistently: black clouds appearing around the aircraft, fragments striking the fuselage, the knowledge that there was nothing to do but hold course and wait. Both sides, the men in the bombers and the men at the guns below, were locked in a system neither had designed and neither could escape. What remained? The war ended in May 1945. The flak arm was disbanded. The guns destroyed, captured, or left to rust where they stood. The Kommandogeräte, the mechanical fire control calculators that had made the system possible, were dismantled or taken by Allied intelligence teams for study. Some of the young Luftwaffenhelfer went home. Some did not. The 88's design principles, high velocity, flat trajectory, large caliber, influenced post-war anti-tank gun development across multiple countries. The basic problem it solved, engaging fast-moving targets at long range with precision, remained a central challenge of modern warfare. The gun is gone. The problem it solved is not. Every battery that fired revealed itself. Every crew that stood at those guns understood that, and they stood there anyway. That is the history, clean, documented, without decoration, and it is enough.